All right, so I'm going to go over these three problems here, applied problems of solving equations. This obviously takes it beyond just solving an equation, but we will be setting up an equation and solving it after we figure out what the problem is asking. Now, I'm going to go over these problems. I'm going to use like my equations that I set up, but most, if not all, of these problems can just be solved like in different ways, as in you don't have to solve it exactly the same way that I do it, and if you come up with a different way, like that's fine, okay? But let's just start by reading the first problem. So it says a skier is trying to decide whether or not to buy a season ski pass. A daily pass costs $67, so that's every day. And a season ski pass costs $350, right? So that would just be, you pay the $350, you could ski as much as you want. The skier would have to rent skis with either pass for $25 per day. Okay, how many days would the skier have to go skiing in order to make the season pass less expensive than daily passes? So this scenario, while you might not be an avid skier, this really pops up a lot, you know, whether you're looking at a pool membership or if you really like Hershey Park and you're thinking about buying a season pass. There's all kinds of scenarios where this can come up and you're like, is it worth it for me to buy the season pass, or should I just, you know, pay every time I go? And you probably wouldn't sit down and make an equation, but you could to solve it, to figure out like how many days you'd have to go to make a season pass worth it. Okay, well, before I start setting up equations and solving this, I want to define some variables so I can be organized with my work. So I'm going to just have x represent days, and I'm going to have y represent how much it costs, right? So if I'm thinking, okay, I want to figure out how much it would cost to buy a season pass, I would have y equals, right, the money equals, now the season pass is just $350, but he also, or she also has to rent skis every time they ski. So we have to add to that cost $25 per day. Now instead of writing out per day, we know that x is going to represent the days, and anytime we see this word per, that's going to mean multiplication, so 25x, right? So this is my season pass equation, okay? Now, if we're just thinking of paying like every time we go, that's going to be y equals, now just to ski for a day is 67x, but you also have to rent the skis, so we can just simplify that. 67 plus 25 is 92x. Okay, so this is daily, I'll just say daily payment. There's my two equations. Now we're trying to figure out how many days they would have to go skiing in order to make the season pass less expensive. So that means we're solving for x, okay? So what I'm going to do here, and this is the point, you could just start plugging in numbers for x. Like if I plugged in a 1 and a 1, how much would it cost? If I plugged in a 2 and a 2 for the 2 days, how much would it cost? And you could like work it out that way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two equations. They're both equal to y, which represent the money. I'm just going to set them equal to each other. So I'm going to go 350 plus 25x equals 92x. And what this is going to do, it's going to tell me when our, let me think how to phrase this. How many days would I have to go skiing to make this amount equal? And then we want to know how many days they'd have to go skiing in order to make the season pass less expensive. So let's solve this first. I'm going to get all my x's together. So I have 350, and that equals 67x. So when I divide both sides by 67, I get x equals 5.22. So if I went skiing exactly 5.22 days, then it wouldn't, like, I could go either way, I'd be paying the same amount of money, right? So you're thinking, would I go skiing less days or more days to make the season pass worth it? And you would want to go more days. So 6 days would be your final answer here. Okay, and let me grab my calculator. You think that would be right? near me. So if I just plug that in, make sure you can see this. So if I go skiing 6 days, 92 times 6, this would be $552 if I go skiing 6 days. Now up here, if I plug in 6, 25 times 6 is 150 plus 350, that's only $500, right? So you can see that's going to be the point, 6 days, where this suddenly becomes a cheaper option, and that's what they were asking for, okay? So again, I'm a math person, I'm going to set up my equations and solve it, but there are other ways that you could have solved that equation. All right, let's move on to number 2. So it says one health club charges a $50 sign-up fee and then is $65 per month. Another club charges a $90 sign-up fee and $45 per month. This is why I go to Planet Fitness when it's like a quarter to sign up and you $10 every month. Anyway, for what number of months is the cost of the clubs equal? Okay, well, it's kind of the same thing happening here. First, I want to define my variables. So now we're talking about months. So X is going to be months, and Y is still going to represent the money. So let's think here. We'll call this Health Club 1. So the cost would be, it's a $50 sign-up fee, and you only pay that one time. So $50, and then it's $65 per month. Again, X is going to be months, and per means multiply, so 65 every month. For the second club, you're paying that $90 one time, and then $45 per month, right? So you're like, okay, well, this is a cheaper sign-up fee, but it's more expensive every month. This costs more to sign up, but it's less expensive every month, right? So if you do some math, you can figure out like what would be most cost-effective for you. Now, if you're thinking like you're going to be part of this club or this gym for years and years and years, of course, this is obviously the cheaper option. But if you're like, I'm only going to be here for 6 months, like you could do some math and figure out what would cost the least amount. Right, so again, I want to know when the cost is equal. Cost is money, so when are the Y's equal? So I'm doing the same thing here that I did in number 1. Since this equals the cost and this equals the cost, I'm just going to take these two equations and set them equal to each other. So 50 plus 65x equals 90 plus 45x. All right, so now let's just, if we get our x's together, if I subtract 45x from both sides, I'm going to have 20x equals, and I subtract 40, and then I just divide by 20, I get x equals 2. So if you were only going to go for 2 months, it would cost the same, it wouldn't really matter, but anything beyond 2 months, you probably want to go with this option here. Okay? So I guess I should say 2 months. All right. Again, I'll say the same thing I did for the first problem. You could just start plugging in your calculator. $50 plus 65. What does it cost for 1 month? Do the same for the other gym. $50 plus 65 times 2. And then do $90 plus 45 times 2. And you could just work it out that way. But that would be like the granny method, right? Like maybe what your grandma might do to figure this out. But if you just are able to set up some equations, it can be a little bit faster. Okay, last one here. All right, so it says a small juice company spends $1,200 per day on business expenses, plus $1.10 per bottle of juice they make. They charge $250. Not true. They charge $2.50 for each bottle of juice they produce. How many bottles of juice must the company sell in 1 day in order to equal its daily costs? Okay, so let's see here. We are working with, we've got days, we've got bottles of juice. So their expenses, for this problem, we're going to think about like how much money is coming into the business and how much money is going out of the business. All right, so I'm going to just have X equal, we'll go with bottles. Okay. And I think Y can just be money again. So if we think about how much money they're making, they charge $2.50 for each bottle of juice they produce. So that's just 250 times X. or 2.5x, right? That's what that's, how can I label this? Money coming in, right? Money they're making. Now, think about the money they're spending, right? So they spend $1,200 per day on business expenses and $110 per bottle of juice they make. Now, the question is asking how many bottles of juice they have to sell in one day. So we don't, since we're just worried about one day, we don't have to worry about doing $1,200 times X, because it's just X in this case is just going to be 1, right? Our days are just 1. So $1,200 a day, and then they also, it costs them $1.10 per bottle of juice they make, right? So they make $2.50 on every bottle they sell, but it costs them $1.10 plus these daily expenses. So they want to know how many bottles of juice do we have to sell in one day so that we are making, what was it say, in order to equal its daily cost. So this actually wouldn't be a good business equation, because you want to be making money, right? Not just splitting even. But again, I'm going to take these two equations and set them equal. So on this side, 2.5x, that's what they're making. On this side, this is what it's costing them. Okay, so now we just need to solve for x. So if I subtract 1.1 x from both sides, that's going to cancel out. And I'm left with 1.4x equals 1,200. Divide by 1.4. And I get x equals 857.14 bottles. Now, you can't sell that many bottles. So, in this case, you would just round up, right? 858 bottles. Actually, if you're rounding up, you would end up making more money, but if you round down, you would make less money. So there really couldn't be an amount of bottles that you would like exactly split even, but I'm rounding up because it's a business, and of course they want to make money. So there it is. That one was a little bit different because in the first two, every time we saw like per month or per day, that meant we multiplied. But in this problem, since we were just asking about like in one day, how many do they have to sell? We didn't have to worry about doing 1,200x or 1,200 times numbers of days, because that would just be 1, right? So we didn't have to put any variable or anything beside the 1,200. So again, this is how I set it up. This is what my, math brain does. There are probably other ways you could have solved this. Now again, for this problem, if you were doing guess and check of just like multiplying 250 times a number, or, like 858 is a pretty, like, it's a high number and it's kind of arbitrary. Like that would take a long time to just maybe get to that answer, where with the 2 months or like the 6 days, it might have been easier to just get that answer doing the granny method. But for this problem, it definitely helped to be able to set up an equation and solve. I think that was a lot faster. So there you go. Try the next 7 problems and see how they go. Thanks for watching.